All praises and glory goes to our mighty power Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Rakakudash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, salutations unto the elect men feeding the sheep of Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, in sincerity and truth with this great gospel coming out of our Bible. And if it wasn't for the spirit of Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, right, waking your punk asses up to this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, you'll be just like the fucking 2/3. You'll be lost, right? You'll be stuck into this world, right? You'll be trying to find your fucking selves in a dying society, right? In a fucking dying society. And that's the problem. These people don't realize this society is dying, right? All the signs point to what? A collapse of a system, a collapse of a nation, right? Why do you think DJT's calling these military men to what? A meeting, the generals, to a great meeting, because why? It's wartime, baby.
Commander, the Donald Trump commander-in-chief train is off the tracks, and it begs the question, at some point will generals refuse his unlawful orders to wage war against the so-called enemy within? A top-ranking Democrat and former Army paratrooper just floated that, and it begs the question, at some point will generals refuse his unlawful orders to wage war against the so-called enemy within? A top-ranking Democrat and former Army paratrooper just floated that very idea, something that could turn into a tremendous problem for Trump like the world has never seen before, believe me, and I have it all for you next. Let's begin with Trump's own words. Just 2 days ago, he delivered a pretext to the generals. He is well known for using pretext as a persuasion tactic. He sells his batshit crazy ideas by wrapping them in a candy coating that feels digestible right before he makes you gag on a jawbreaker. Days ago, he delivered a pretext to the generals. He is well known for using pretext as a persuasion tactic. He sells his batshit crazy ideas by wrapping them in a candy coating that feels digestible right before he makes you gag on a jawbreaker.
To back up what my man just said, this is Psalms 55 and 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet there were drawn swords, right? Because you got to realize, Nero, DJT, the only thing in his mind is to collapse his system, right? He's getting orders from above, not just the elites, he's getting orders from the Heavenly Father. It's our time for America to go down, for Babylon to fall, and guess what? You're going to be the one to bring it to a collapse, right? You're fucking up everything. DJT don't give a damn about even his own military. Proverbs 55 and 21, it says the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords.
He sells his batshit crazy ideas by wrapping them in a candy coating that feels digestible right before he makes you gag on a jawbreaker. Have a listen to his pretext for turning the military into Trump's urban strike force.
San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, they're very unsafe places, and we're going to straighten them out one by one. And this is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war, too. It's a war from within. I told Pete, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military.
It is well known that Hitler often used enemy from within propaganda to stir division and rally his supporters against his made-up enemies. So
let's read it again. Psalms 55 and 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, right? The enemy from within, right? This man is sending military troops to all these cities, these major cities: California, Chicago, New York, Memphis, Florida, right? All these cities, man, where he says there's a crime problem. And you talk to the mayors and these politicians, they say actually crime has went down, right? Even here in Chicago, you used to hear about all type of killings, man. That shit went down like a motherfucker. Because niggas is like, what the fuck is the point of gangbanging? Even one dude put up, man, he said gangbanging been played out. Right, there's only a few retarded motherfuckers left still gangbanging and committing crimes and doing these things. And the other crimes are due to what? Poverty. Poverty, right? They done set up a system where people are poor. It ain't just black people, Hispanic people. It's all type of race, nations of people that are committing crimes and atrocities because what they have lost things in this society. Right? They're poor. They can't afford to feed their families. Right? The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. And guess what? He's in the right spirit. He's in the right spirit. Because what? It says, Esau, Edom, the wicked will do wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand. This man was set up to do what he's supposed to do. Right? This is the book of Psalms 55:3. It says, because the voice of the enemy, because the voice of the oppression, I'm reading again, because the voice of the enemy, because the voice of the oppression of the wicked, for they cast iniquity upon me, and in wrath they hate me, right? Who's Esau's anger pointed towards? You Negroes, you Hispanics, you Native Americans, you Israelites. You Israelites.
You guys did get the message.
The best way to take care of troops is to give them good leaders committed to the warfighting culture of the department. Not perfect leaders, good leaders. Competent, qualified, professional, agile, aggressive, innovative, risk-taking, apolitical, faithful to their oath and to the Constitution.
Perfect.
Competent, qualified. President Trump has done getting our allies and partners to step up and share the burden. America cannot do everything. The free world requires allies with real hard power, real military leadership, and real military capabilities.
Now, the Secretary
America
on being able to fight China by Xi Jinping's date of 2027. We're still going to war, but we're going to do it in a less prepared fashion. So in some ways, I'm glad that finally somebody has said this.
You see, this urgent moment, of course, requires more troops, more munitions, more drones, more Patriots, more submarines, more B-21 bombers. It requires more innovation, more AI in everything and ahead of the curve. More cyber effects, more counter-UAS, more space, more speed. America is the strongest, but we need to get stronger and quickly.
Again, this is not a controversial statement.
Everything and ahead of the curve. More cyber effects, more counter-UAS, more space, more speed. America is the strongest, but we need to get stronger and quickly.
I'm going to read the book of Joel 3 verse 9. It reads, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up, right? That's why he called them generals. Why you think they calling all their generals to a meeting? Right? Israel had a few years ago called all their people to come back home, prepare for this war. You got different nations calling their people to return back home to prepare for the war. Right? You got motherfuckers leaving America, going back to their countries because they know they're not safe here in Babylon the Great as a foreigner. Right, as a foreigner, guess what? All hell about to break loose in Babylon the Great. It's called World War Goddamn 3. Right, World War 3, and it is a beautiful thing. I'm reading the book of Ezekiel 38:11. And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages, and I will go to them that are to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. Right, this is talking about America. Right, the Lord is putting the spirit in the Russians to invade America. Ezekiel 38, let's start at verse 1. It says, and the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. And say, thus saith the Lord power, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Right, when you look into that area right there, that's who's dwelling in that land is the Russians. The Russians, right? And it says that I will turn thee back and put hooks in thy jaws. And I will bring thee forth in all thine army and horses and horsemen, and all them clothed with sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, Persia, Ethiopia, Libya, with them, all of them with shields and helmets, right? Hey, the Lord got Russia making pacts with the Persians, pacts with the Africans, right? Northern Africans, the East Coast Africans, right? It says Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togomor and North Quarters and all his bands and people with thee, right? European nations, African nations, Arab nations, all nations are about to come together to fight against who? Babylon the Great. Babylon the Great. It says, be thou prepared and prepare for thyself. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Right? What was this assembly? It's called the BRICS. the BRIC nations, right? They keep talking about the BRIC nations are adding more and more nations every month, every year, more nations, right? They're leaving that currency, the American currency, and they're joining to that Russian, China, right? South African currency, right? Brazil. After many days thou shalt be visited, in the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword and is gathered out of many people, right? America, many nations are come here to gather. It's a melting pot against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste. And who they been against? Our people. But it is brought forth out of nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, right? All hell about to break loose in America, and America's going to be invaded. It says, thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land. Thou and all thy bands and many people with thee, man. And America's being surrounded, right? They finding fucking military boats and what's the other thing that be under the motherfucking waters, man? That submarines and shit popping up around America on the East Coast, on the West Coast, by Florida, in different places close to Canada, right? China's doing different military drills around America, man. They seen how close they could come before Esau do something, right? It says, thus saith the Lord power, it shall also come to pass that at the same time, what? At the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought, right? The Lord gonna put evil thoughts in the minds of these Russians, right? In the minds of these Russians. What's the evil thoughts? Destroy Babylon the Great. Right? Destroy Babylon the Great. And it says, and thou shalt say, I will go to the land of unwalled villages, America. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, America. All of them dwelling without walls, and having neither bars nor gates, to take what? To take spoil and to take prey. That's why it says some are for death and some are for the captivity. Some are for the sword, to take spoil and to take prey. To turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of nations, which have gotten cattle and goods, that dwell in the midst of the land, right? All hell about to break loose in America. That's why you got to prepare for this invasion. You got to prepare for the coming of our Lord. You got to prepare for what? The destruction of this fucking system. This is the book of Psalms 55 verse 9. It says, destroy, O Lord, and divide their tongues, for I have seen the violence and the strife in the city. What did it say? Psalms 55 and 9. Destroy, O Lord, and divide their tongues, for I have seen the violence. For I have seen violence and strife in the city.
Watch as she brutally confronts Mike Johnson over what Trump said, and on the other hand, to stir division and rally his supporters against his made-up enemies. So this is crazy.
Our military.
It is well known that Hitler often used enemy from within propaganda to stir division and rally his supporters against his made-up enemies. So this is crazy talk, right? Congresswoman Madeleine Dean definitely thinks so. Watch as she brutally confronts Mike Johnson over what Trump said, and on the other side, can and will generals disobey his orders?
The president is unhinged. He is unwell. What are you doing?
Folks on your side are too. I don't control.
Oh my God, please. That performance in front of the generals?
I didn't see it.
It's so dangerous. You know I serve on Foreign Affairs and Appropriations. It's a collision of those two things. Our allies are looking elsewhere. Our enemies are laughing.
I just left
You
the
have a
speaker's
president
side.
who is...
I didn't see it.
It's so dangerous. You know I serve on Foreign Affairs and Appropriations. It's a collision of those two things. Our allies are looking elsewhere. Our enemies are laughing.
I just left
You
the
have a
speaker's
president
side.
you have a president who is unwell.
And here's Governor West.
Video. From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: war fighting. Preparing for war and preparing to win. That started in the video. From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: war fighting. Preparing for war and preparing to win. Now, to start requires, as President Trump has done, getting our allies and partners to step up and share the burden. America cannot do everything. The free world requires allies with real hard power, real military leadership, and real military capabilities.
Now, the Secretary isn't wrong. Last February, when Vice President Vance went to the Munich Security Conference and basically said to Europe that their free ride was over, I was in Poland at a NATO event a few days afterwards, and I felt how much our allies were betrayed, because believe me, they told me. And, I wish different words had been used by the Vice President, but our allies did get the message.
The best way
I felt how much our allies were betrayed, because believe me, they told me. And, I wish different words had been used by the Vice President, but our allies did get the message.
I'm going to finish with the book of Obadiah 1 verse 7. It reads, all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevail against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid wound under thee. There is no understanding in them. Right? Because they're pride, right? Esau's so prideful. He's broadcasting his mind, his thoughts, right? Right before the time of war. So these nations, they're looking at, they're all about themselves. Forget them. They're all about themselves, right? That's why a lot of friends of America about to turn on America, right? Also, you got one more verse. It's the book of Mark 3, and let's go to 24. It says, and if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. If Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but have an end. Have an end, and that's what's happening, right? The house is divided, right? The so-called frenemies are becoming enemies, right? The currency's collapsing. The whole system is collapsing, right? This is the end of his world, the end of Esau's world. Shalom.